What if we're profoundly wrong about why we're alone? The Fermi paradox has dozens of potential solutions. Most are terrifying, but there's one that's so disturbing, so counterintuitive that almost nobody wants to believe it's true. Consider the possibility that advanced civilizations do arise frequently. They spread through the galaxy. They're just invisible to us. Not because they're hiding, but because the very act of becoming advanced fundamentally alters their relationship with the universe in a way we can't yet comprehend. The implications extend to our own future. 80% of all habitable planets may be tidally locked. Think about that. 80%. We tend to imagine alien civilizations arising on Earth-like worlds, rotating planets with day and night cycles. But what if that's the exception, not the rule? What if most life-bearing planets are locked, with one side perpetually facing their star and the other forever in darkness? The implications for evolution, for technology, for the very nature of an advanced civilization are almost impossible to grasp. This brings us to one of the darker corners of Fermi paradox solutions, the great filter. The idea is simple enough. Something prevents most, if not all, life from reaching interstellar travel capabilities. A hurdle so significant that it wipes out almost every civilization before it can announce its presence to the galaxy. Now, the optimistic take is that the great filter is behind us. Maybe it was the formation of eukaryotic cells, the jump from single-celled organisms to complex life. Or perhaps it was the Cambrian explosion, the sudden burst of biodiversity that occurred on Earth over 500 million years ago. If the great filter is in our past, it means we've already overcome the improbable odds. We're special, and the universe should be teeming with life at our level. But what if the great filter isn't behind us? What if it's ahead? This is where things get truly unnerving. It means that every other civilization that has ever arisen has met its end before reaching the stars. And we're next. The usual suspects for future great filters are things like nuclear war, engineered pandemics, or runaway climate change, existential threats that we as a species might not be able to overcome. But there's another possibility, one that ties directly into the idea of advanced civilizations altering their relationship with the universe. The filter isn't a disaster, it's a choice. Consider the energy requirements of interstellar travel. We're talking about unfathomable amounts of power. Even traveling at a fraction of the speed of light would require energy outputs that dwarf our current global consumption. Where would a civilization get that kind of energy? One option, the one we often envision, is massive-scale energy harvesting. Dyson spheres, orbital solar collectors, tapping into the power of stars themselves. But these megastructures, by their very nature, are incredibly visible. They would be detectable across vast interstellar distances. And yet, we see nothing. So, what if there's another way? A more efficient, less conspicuous way to achieve advanced technological capabilities? What if, instead of expanding outward, harnessing ever greater amounts of energy, civilizations turn inward? What if they discover that the key to advancement lies not in conquering the universe, but in mastering the inner world? This isn't some new age philosophy. Consider the implications of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and genetic engineering. Imagine a civilization that has perfected these technologies to the point where they can create entire simulated universes within a computer. Universes where they can live, explore, and experience anything they can imagine. Why would a civilization that has achieved this level of technological sophistication bother with the risks and challenges of interstellar travel? Why would they expend vast amounts of energy on building megastructures when they can create entire worlds with a fraction of the resources? The answer perhaps is that they wouldn't. They would transcend the need for physical expansion. They would become, in essence, invisible. Not because they're hiding, but because their existence has become fundamentally different from ours. They've opted out of the physical universe in favor of a simulated one. And this perhaps is the great filter that awaits us. The point where we realize that the pursuit of external technology is a dead end. That the true path to advancement lies in the exploration of consciousness, the mastery of virtual reality, and the creation of self-contained, simulated worlds. The implications extend beyond just interstellar travel. Consider communication. We assume that advanced civilizations would be broadcasting signals across the galaxy, trying to make contact. But what if they're not interested in communicating with us? What if their simulated worlds are so compelling, so rich and fulfilling that they have no desire to interact with the messy, unpredictable reality of the physical universe? What if they see us with our primitive technology and our endless conflicts as a distraction, a nuisance, or even a threat? It's a chilling thought that the reason we haven't heard from anyone else is not because they're dead, but because they've simply moved on. They've transcended the need for physical existence and retreated into their own private realities. This is the terrifying solution nobody wants to be true because it challenges our fundamental assumptions about progress, about technology, and about the very nature of existence. It suggests that the path to enlightenment may not lie in conquering the stars, but in mastering our own minds. The analysis continues. What if the Kardashev scale itself is a fundamentally flawed way of assessing technological advancement? We tend to measure progress based on a civilization's energy consumption, assuming that more energy equals greater development. But what if there are paths to advancement that require less energy, not more? What if the ultimate form of technology is one that operates on principles we don't even understand yet, using resources we haven't even discovered? The Kardashev scale, for all its elegance, is a product of our limited understanding. It's based on the assumption that civilizations will inevitably strive to harness ever-increasing amounts of energy from their stars. But this assumption is rooted in our own history, in our own trajectory as a species. We're projecting our own ambitions and limitations onto the entire universe, and that's a dangerous game. Consider the possibility that advanced civilizations might discover ways to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself, to travel vast distances without expending enormous amounts of energy, to create self-sustaining ecosystems that require minimal external input, to tap into sources of energy that are currently beyond our comprehension. If such technologies exist, then the Kardashev scale becomes largely irrelevant. A civilization could possess unimaginable power and influence without registering on our radar. They might be using energy sources that are undetectable to us, or manipulating space-time in ways that we can't even fathom. This is where the concept of ascension comes into play, not in a religious or spiritual sense, but in a technological one. Imagine a civilization that has mastered the art of manipulating matter and energy at the quantum level. They could potentially transfer their consciousness into non-biological substrates, freeing themselves from the limitations of their physical bodies. They could then exist in a purely digital realm, unbound by the constraints of space and time. They could explore the universe through virtual simulations, create entire worlds within their own minds, and evolve in ways that are unimaginable to us. From our perspective, such a civilization would be virtually invisible. They wouldn't be broadcasting radio signals, building Dyson spheres, or engaging in any of the activities that we typically associate with advanced extraterrestrial life. They would have simply moved beyond the realm of physical detection. This idea is unsettling because it challenges our fundamental notions of what it means to be a civilization. We tend to think of progress as a linear process, with each stage building upon the previous one. But what if there are alternative pathways, shortcuts, or even entirely different directions that a civilization can take? What if the pursuit of ever-increasing energy consumption is a dead end? What if the true path to advancement lies in the exploration of consciousness, the manipulation of reality, and the transcendence of physical limitations? It's difficult to wrap our heads around such possibilities because they lie so far outside our current frame of reference. We're like ants trying to understand the complexities of human society. We can observe the surface level, but we lack the cognitive capacity to grasp the underlying principles. And that's perhaps the most terrifying aspect of this solution to the Fermi paradox. It suggests that the universe may be teeming with life, but that most of it exists in forms that are completely unrecognizable to us. We might be surrounded by advanced civilizations, but we're simply not equipped to perceive them. This also challenges the very nature of our search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI. We're looking for signals that are similar to our own, assuming that other civilizations will communicate in ways that we can understand. But what if they're using forms of communication that are beyond our comprehension? What if they're sending signals through quantum entanglement, manipulating dark matter, or using some other technology that we haven't even dreamed of yet? We might be missing the forest for the trees, focusing on the wrong types of signals and overlooking the ones that are right in front of us. Think about it. We only started using radio technology a little over a century ago. What if civilizations far older than ours have moved on to far more advanced forms of communication? Forms that we wouldn't even recognize as communication. The implications extend beyond just the search for extraterrestrial life. It also raises fundamental questions about the nature of reality, the limits of human knowledge, and the future of our own civilization. Are we on the right track? Are we pursuing the right goals? Or are we blindly stumbling down a path that will ultimately lead to our own extinction? Perhaps the most terrifying Fermi paradox solution nobody wants to be true is the realization that our understanding of the universe is fundamentally incomplete, that there are entire realms of existence that we are currently blind to, and that the true answers to the Fermi paradox may lie not in the stars, but within ourselves. We must expand our minds, challenge our assumptions, and be open to the possibility that the universe is far stranger and more wondrous than we ever imagined. Because if we don't, we risk missing out on the greatest discovery of all time, the realization that we are not alone. But to find them, we might have to change what find even means. This idea kept me up way too late last night. Imagine a cosmic predator, not some alien species with a thirst for resources, but something far more terrifying. A self-replicating, automated system designed to eliminate any potential threats to its creators, or maybe even just anything that could be competition. This is the core of the berserker hypothesis. The hypothesis suggests that one or more advanced civilizations, fearing competition or existential threats from other emerging civilizations, created these automated probes, the berserkers, programmed to seek out and destroy any signs of technological advancement. They're like cosmic Roomba vacuum cleaners, except instead of dust bunnies, they're sucking up civilizations. These probes wouldn't necessarily be biological. In fact, they'd almost certainly be artificial, likely employing advanced nanotechnology and self-replication to spread throughout the galaxy. Think von Neumann probes, but weaponized. Their purpose? To sterilize any potential threats before they even have a chance to become a real problem. Now, why is this a potential solution to the Fermi paradox? Well, imagine a galaxy where these berserkers have been active for millions or even billions of years. Any civilization that reaches a certain level of technological sophistication would quickly be detected and eliminated. The galaxy would essentially become a graveyard of failed civilizations, all wiped out before they could develop interstellar travel or broadcast their presence to the cosmos. This means that we, as a relatively young and technologically nascent civilization, might be living on borrowed time. We might be detectable and therefore a target. The implications are, frankly, horrifying. Consider the potential motivations behind creating such a system. Perhaps the creators were themselves victims of a similar attack and sought to prevent it from happening to others, a kind of cosmic, scorched earth policy. Or maybe they were simply paranoid, unwilling to risk competition from any other intelligent species. The exact reasons are irrelevant. The outcome is the same, a galaxy devoid of advanced life. The real kicker is that we wouldn't necessarily even know that we were being targeted until it was too late. A berserker probe might appear as a harmless asteroid or a piece of space debris, silently monitoring our progress and waiting for the opportune moment to strike. It might be using sophisticated cloaking technology or operating in a way that we simply don't understand. Think about the difficulty in detecting something that wants to remain undetected and has potentially millions of years of technological advancement on its side. We're essentially trying to find a needle in a haystack, except the needle is invisible and actively trying to avoid being found. Some scientists have proposed that certain unexplained astronomical events, such as the rapid dimming of Tabby's star, could potentially be attributed to the activities of a berserker probe. While this is highly speculative, it highlights the fact that we are constantly observing phenomena that we cannot fully explain, and the possibility, however remote, that some of these phenomena could be related to extraterrestrial activity. Even hostile activity cannot be completely dismissed. Furthermore, the berserker hypothesis raises serious ethical questions about our own future. As we continue to develop more advanced technologies, including artificial intelligence and self-replicating systems, we must consider the potential risks of creating something that could ultimately turn against us or against other civilizations in the galaxy. Are we potentially creating our own berserkers, even unintentionally? The idea of self-replicating probes doesn't exist solely in the realm of science fiction. There are serious research initiatives looking at nanotechnology and self-assembling systems. While the intentions are purely for beneficial purposes, such as manufacturing and medicine, the potential for misuse is always there. It's a grim thought, I know, but consider how easily even human technology can be weaponized, even when it's created for altruistic reasons. So, what can we do to protect ourselves from a potential berserker attack? The answer is not entirely clear. One approach might be to focus on developing stealth technology, making ourselves less detectable to potential threats. Another approach might be to form alliances with other civilizations, creating a united front against any hostile forces. But perhaps the most important thing we can do is to continue to explore the universe, to learn as much as we can about the potential dangers that may lie ahead. Because in the face of the unknown, knowledge is our greatest weapon. Meanwhile, September 1st, 1961, Project Ozma. A young astronomer named Frank Drake aimed the 85-foot Tell radio telescope at two nearby sun-like stars, Tau Ceti and Epsilon Eridani. He was listening for signals, any signals, that might indicate the presence of extraterrestrial intelligence. It was a long shot, but it was the first organized search of its kind. He didn't find anything. And in the decades since, despite increasingly sophisticated searches, we still haven't found anything. But what if the silence isn't because there's nobody out there? What if it's because everyone is deliberately keeping quiet? Consider the dark forest theory, a concept popularized by Chinese science fiction writer Liu Cixin in his novel of the same name. This theory suggests that the universe is a dangerous place, a dark forest filled with predatory civilizations. And in this forest, silence is the only way to survive. The core idea is brutally simple. Any civilization that reveals its existence risks being targeted and destroyed by a more advanced civilization. Think of it like this. If you're walking through a dark forest and you hear a rustling in the bushes, do you shout out, "Hello, is anyone there?" Probably not. You'd likely stay quiet, try to assess the threat, and maybe even hide. The dark forest theory rests on a few key assumptions. First, it assumes that resources in the universe are finite. This means that civilizations are in competition with each other for those resources. Second, it assumes that civilizations cannot be certain of each other's intentions. Even if a civilization appears friendly, there's no guarantee that it won't eventually turn hostile. And third, it assumes that technological advancement leads to increasingly destructive capabilities. A civilization that is only slightly more advanced than another could potentially wipe it out with relative ease. Given these assumptions, the logical strategy for any civilization is to remain hidden. To broadcast your existence is to paint a target on your back. As soon as you make noise, you become a potential threat or a potential resource to someone else. It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That the very act of searching for extraterrestrial life could be putting us in danger. The dark forest solution to the Fermi paradox offers a compelling explanation for the Great Silence. Civilizations aren't necessarily rare, they're just hiding. They're listening, but they're not broadcasting. They're waiting, watching, and preparing for the day when they might have to defend themselves. This theory also provides a possible explanation for why we haven't detected any von Neumann probes or other signs of extraterrestrial activity. If civilizations are actively trying to conceal their existence, they would likely avoid creating anything that could be easily detected by others. This could mean limiting their expansion, restricting their technological development, or even actively destroying any evidence of their presence. Now, the dark forest theory isn't without its critics. Some argue that it's overly pessimistic, that it assumes all civilizations are inherently hostile. Others point out that it would require a level of coordination and secrecy that seems unlikely, given the vastness of the universe and the potential for rogue civilizations to break the silence. But even if the dark forest theory isn't entirely accurate, it raises some important questions about the nature of the universe and our place in it. It forces us to confront the possibility that we are not alone, but that we may be surrounded by dangers that we cannot even comprehend. It suggests that the search for extraterrestrial life is not just a scientific endeavor, but a potentially perilous one. If the dark forest theory holds any weight, then our own efforts to broadcast our existence into space through radio signals, television broadcasts, and even the deliberate transmission of messages could be seen as incredibly reckless. We are essentially shouting into the dark forest, announcing our presence to anyone who might be listening. Is it possible that we have already been heard? Is it possible that somewhere out there a more advanced civilization is now aware of our existence and is making plans to deal with us? These are unsettling questions, but they are questions that we need to consider. The implications extend beyond just our own safety. The dark forest theory also has implications for our understanding of the universe and our place in it. If civilizations are actively trying to conceal their existence, then the universe may be far more crowded than we currently believe. The Great Silence may not be an indication of rarity, but rather an indication of caution. And then, we tend to picture advanced civilizations as these hyper-efficient, constantly expanding empires, right? But what if their biggest hurdle isn't some cosmic threat or even each other, but something far more mundane? Running out of stuff. I'm talking resource exhaustion on a galactic scale. Consider this. Any civilization, no matter how advanced, needs resources to survive and grow. Energy, raw materials, habitable planets, these are all finite, even on a cosmic scale. A civilization that expands rapidly, consuming resources at an exponential rate, could eventually hit a wall. It's like a supercharged version of what we're seeing on Earth, but with potentially no escape valve. The problem isn't just about running out of readily available resources, it's about the increasing difficulty and cost of acquiring them. Think about mining asteroids. It's theoretically possible, but incredibly expensive and energy intensive. Now imagine doing that across interstellar distances. The returns diminish rapidly, making further expansion less and less appealing. What if the universe is littered with the ruins of civilizations that simply burn too brightly, too fast? They reached a certain level of technological advancement, expanded until they exhausted their local resources, and then collapsed. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. Their technology might still be out there, detectable in theory, but the civilization itself is gone. This great filter wouldn't be some singular event like a self-inflicted catastrophe or a cosmic plague. It would be a slow, grinding process of diminishing returns, leading to stagnation and eventual decline. A civilization might choose to scale back, focusing on internal development rather than outward expansion. Or it might simply fade away, unable to sustain its own growth. This also makes a pretty grim point about sustainability. We tend to talk about sustainability as an earthbound problem, but what if it's a universal law? What if civilizations that don't figure out how to live within their means are simply doomed to disappear? The implications extend beyond just the fate of individual civilizations. If resource exhaustion is a common phenomenon, it could explain why we haven't detected any signs of extraterrestrial life. Maybe they were here, millions or billions of years ago, but they're gone now, their resources depleted, their civilizations crumbled into cosmic dust. It suggests a depressing possibility, that the universe isn't necessarily empty but rather filled with the ghosts of civilizations that failed to overcome the challenge of resource management. Think about it from our perspective. We are, right now, burning through resources at an alarming rate. We're pushing the limits of our planet's carrying capacity. Are we on a similar trajectory? And it's not just about physical resources. It could also be about information. The constant pursuit of knowledge, the relentless drive to innovate, these things require immense amounts of energy and processing power. A civilization could reach a point where the cost of acquiring new information outweighs the benefits. They might choose to slow down, to consolidate their knowledge, to focus on maintaining what they already have. This could lead to a kind of technological plateau where civilizations stagnate for millions or even billions of years. They wouldn't necessarily disappear, but they wouldn't be actively expanding or broadcasting their presence into the cosmos. They would simply exist, quietly and unobtrusively, like ancient, slumbering giants. The analysis continued. If this is true, the Fermi paradox is not just about why we haven't heard from anyone, but about why we don't see any evidence of massive, galaxy-spanning engineering projects. Why aren't there Dyson spheres? Why aren't there fleets of interstellar spacecraft? Maybe the answer is simple, because building those things is incredibly resource-intensive, and most civilizations eventually realize that it's not worth the cost. This also ties into the dark forest theory in a strange way. If resources are scarce, then competition for those resources could be a major driver of interstellar conflict. Civilizations might be actively hiding their presence, not just to avoid being attacked, but also to avoid attracting unwanted attention to their resources. It paints a picture of a universe that is far more constrained and limited than we might imagine. It suggests that the laws of physics, the availability of resources, and the inherent challenges of interstellar travel place severe constraints on the growth and development of civilizations. It's a sobering thought, but it's one that we need to consider if we want to understand our place in the cosmos. Here's what's wild. This theory doesn't require any advanced or unknown physics. It's simply an extrapolation of what we already know about resource consumption and the limits of growth. It's a reminder that even in the vastness of space, there are limits to what is possible. The implications extend to our own search for extraterrestrial intelligence. If resource exhaustion is a common fate, then we might be looking for the wrong things. We might be searching for signals from civilizations that are long gone, or for signs of engineering projects that were never built. Maybe we should be focusing on detecting signs of sustainability, of civilizations that have learned to live in harmony with their environment. And it's a call to action for us, right here on Earth. If we want to avoid the fate of those hypothetical extinct civilizations, we need to take resource management seriously. We need to develop sustainable technologies, reduce our consumption, and find ways to live within the limits of our planet. Because the alternative is, well, silence. There's a massive problem with the way we think about civilizational advancement. We tend to picture it as a linear progression, from simple tools to complex technologies, from exploring our planet to reaching for the stars. But what if that's the wrong way to look at it? What if the ultimate goal of a civilization isn't outward expansion but inward transformation? This idea is called transcension, and it suggests that some civilizations may choose to leave the physical universe behind altogether, opting instead to explore the infinite possibilities of virtual realities or higher dimensions. It's a concept that's been explored in science fiction for decades, but it might also be a legitimate solution to the Fermi paradox. Consider the computational power required to simulate a universe. If a civilization reaches a point where it can create simulations indistinguishable from reality, why would they bother with the messy, resource-intensive process of colonizing space? It's like choosing to build a real-world replica of Disneyland when you could just create an infinitely better virtual one. The appeal is obvious. In a simulated or virtual environment, the limitations of physics no longer apply. You can explore impossible landscapes, experience impossible sensations, and even become virtually immortal. It's a way to transcend the boundaries of our physical existence. Of course, this raises a lot of questions. Where would these civilizations go? What would they do in these simulated realities? And most importantly, would we even be able to detect them if they did? The answer to that last question is probably no. If a civilization has truly transcended the physical universe, they would be effectively invisible to us. They wouldn't be emitting radio signals, building megastructures, or engaging in any of the activities that we would normally look for. They would simply be gone, having retreated into a realm that is beyond our comprehension. This is where the terrifying part comes in. Transcension suggests that the reason we haven't found any other civilizations is not because they don't exist, but because they've all left. They've abandoned the physical universe in favor of something else, something that we can't even imagine. It challenges our fundamental assumptions about what it means to be a civilization. We tend to think of progress in terms of technological advancement and outward expansion, but transcension suggests that the ultimate goal may be something entirely different, a kind of spiritual or existential awakening that leads civilizations to abandon the material world altogether. The implications extend to our own future. Are we destined to follow the same path? Will we eventually reach a point where we too choose to leave the physical universe behind? It's a question that we need to start asking ourselves because the answer could have profound implications for the future of our species. And the thing is, it's not just about virtual realities. The concept of transcension could also involve a more literal departure from our current understanding of physics. Some theories suggest the existence of higher dimensions that are beyond our perception. A sufficiently advanced civilization might be able to find a way to access these dimensions, effectively disappearing from our universe. This is admittedly speculative, but it's not entirely without precedent. String theory, for example, proposes that our universe is just one of many, existing in a higher dimensional space called the multiverse. If these other universes are real, then it's conceivable that a civilization could find a way to travel between them. Think of it like this. We're like fish living in a pond, completely unaware of the world beyond the surface. We might develop sophisticated technologies for exploring our pond, but we would have no way of knowing about the existence of the land, the sky, or the creatures that live there. Similarly, a civilization that has transcended the physical universe might be operating on a level that is completely beyond our understanding. The analysis continued. Scientists discovered that the mathematical models used to describe these higher dimensions are incredibly complex, and that it's difficult to even imagine what they might be like. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. Here's what's wild. The very act of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence might be pushing us closer to transcension. As we develop more powerful computers, more sophisticated simulations, and a deeper understanding of the universe, we are also creating the tools that could one day allow us to leave it behind. It's a paradox, but it's one that we need to confront. The search itself might be the catalyst. And then there's the question of whether we should transcend. Is it ethical to abandon the physical universe, even if we have the ability to do so? What would happen to the resources that we leave behind? Would we be creating a kind of cosmic vacuum, leaving the universe open to exploitation by other, less enlightened civilizations? These are difficult questions, and there are no easy answers. This means we need to consider all possibilities. The Fermi paradox isn't just a scientific puzzle, it's an existential one. It forces us to confront our place in the universe, to question our assumptions about progress, and to consider the ultimate fate of our species. And transcension, as unsettling as it may be, is a vital part of that conversation. Nobody saw this coming. The possibility that intelligent life, rather than succumbing to some external threat or limitation, might actually be programmed for self-destruction. It's a bleak prospect, admittedly, but one that demands consideration if we're serious about the Fermi paradox. The idea isn't new, of course. We humans have been toying with self-destructive tendencies for as long as we've had the capacity to build civilizations worth destroying. Nuclear weapons, environmental degradation, runaway AI, the list of potential self-inflicted wounds is long and, frankly, getting longer. But what if this wasn't just a human problem? What if it was a universal imperative, a kind of cosmic law that all intelligent species eventually encounter? Let's examine the core concept. As civilizations advance, they inevitably develop technologies with the potential for immense destruction. Nuclear fusion offers clean energy, but also the possibility of planet-sterilizing bombs. Genetic engineering could cure diseases, but might also unleash unstoppable plagues. Artificial intelligence promises untold advancements, but could also turn against its creators. This isn't just about technological accidents, though those are certainly a risk. The self-destruction imperative goes deeper, suggesting that the very traits that drive a species to become intelligent and technologically advanced might also contain the seeds of its own demise. Think about it. Curiosity, ambition, the relentless pursuit of knowledge, these are all essential ingredients for progress. But they can also lead to recklessness, a willingness to take risks without fully understanding the consequences. A civilization obsessed with expansion might deplete its resources or provoke conflicts with other species. A civilization driven by innovation might unleash technologies that it can't control. And then there's the problem of societal collapse. As civilizations grow more complex, they become more vulnerable to internal stresses. Economic inequality, political instability, cultural fragmentation, any of these can trigger a cascade of events that leads to the downfall of even the most advanced societies. We see echoes of this throughout human history, empires rising and falling, cultures flourishing and then fading away. Is it possible that this cycle is unavoidable, a built-in limitation on the lifespan of any civilization? The evidence shows that advanced technologies might inadvertently create existential risks that are difficult or even impossible to manage. Consider the possibility of nanotechnology. If self-replicating nanobots were to get out of control, they could consume all the matter on a planet, turning it into grey goo. Or imagine a civilization that discovers how to create artificial black holes. A single miscalculation could have catastrophic consequences for the entire galaxy, but it gets even more unsettling. What if self-destruction isn't just a byproduct of progress, but an active goal? What if some civilizations, driven by ideological extremism or existential despair, deliberately choose to destroy themselves? This might sound far-fetched, but consider the potential for a civilization to develop a doomsday device, a technology specifically designed to wipe out all life on a planet. Such a device could be triggered by a variety of factors, such as a perceived threat from another civilization, a catastrophic environmental event, or simply a loss of faith in the future. The implications extend beyond just physical destruction. A civilization might also choose to destroy itself culturally by abandoning its values, traditions, and sense of purpose. This could happen gradually through a process of decay and apathy, or it could be a deliberate act of rebellion against the status quo. Consider also the dark forest theory, which posits that the universe is filled with hostile civilizations that are actively trying to eliminate any potential threats. According to this theory, any civilization that reveals its existence to the universe is essentially painting a target on its back. This could lead civilizations to adopt a strategy of extreme secrecy, or even to preemptively destroy any other civilizations that they perceive as a threat. It's a grim picture, but one that's consistent with the observed absence of extraterrestrial life. This means we need to consider the psychological factors that might contribute to self-destruction. A civilization plagued by internal conflicts, existential anxieties, or a sense of meaninglessness might be more likely to turn inward and destroy itself. The very act of contemplating the vastness and indifference of the universe could lead some civilizations to conclude that life is ultimately futile and that destruction is the only rational response. And then there's the potential for a great filter that specifically targets advanced civilizations. This filter could be a technological challenge that is so difficult to overcome that most civilizations simply fail to make it through. Or it could be a social or political challenge that leads to internal collapse. Whatever the nature of the filter, the fact that we haven't yet detected any other intelligent life suggests that it's a formidable barrier. It's a depressing thought, isn't it? The possibility that we're not alone in the universe, but that all other civilizations have already destroyed themselves. But it's a thought that we need to confront if we're going to have any hope of avoiding the same fate. The Fermi paradox isn't just a scientific puzzle, it's a warning. It's telling us that something is terribly wrong and that we need to figure out what it is before it's too late. The next question is, if self-destruction is an imperative, can it be avoided? Is it possible for a civilization to overcome its self-destructive tendencies and achieve long-term survival? Or are we all doomed to repeat the same tragic cycle, rising to great heights only to fall back into the abyss? This means we need to confront the possibility that the most terrifying solution to the Fermi paradox isn't some external threat, but something intrinsic to life itself. A universal dark forest, not of predators, but of gardeners. Think about it. What if advanced civilizations, upon reaching a certain level of technological and philosophical maturity, inevitably conclude that the best way to ensure the survival of life in the universe is not through expansion and contact, but through active, targeted suppression of other emerging civilizations? It's a chilling idea, I know. The benevolent shepherd protecting the flock by, well, you get the picture. The reasoning behind this cosmic stewardship could be complex. Perhaps they've witnessed countless civilizations destroy themselves through reckless technological advancement, resource depletion, or internecine warfare. Maybe they've discovered some fundamental law of the universe that makes the unfettered proliferation of intelligent life inherently dangerous. A cosmic cancer, if you will. So, rather than passively waiting for disaster to strike, they proactively intervene, nipping potential threats in the bud. Not out of malice, but out of a twisted sense of responsibility. A cosmic Hippocratic oath, gone horribly wrong. The implications are profound. If this is true, the absence of detectable extraterrestrial signals isn't just a matter of distance or technological limitations. It's the result of deliberate suppression. We're not alone, but we're being actively prevented from knowing it. But why target emerging civilizations? Why not just let them develop in peace? The answer, according to this terrifying solution, lies in the unpredictability of growth. A civilization that is allowed to develop unchecked could eventually become a threat to the established order, either through expansionist ambitions or by developing technologies that could destabilize the delicate balance of the universe. It's a preemptive strike on a cosmic scale, a calculated act of preservation disguised as cosmic silence. Consider the ethical implications. Is it justifiable for one civilization to impose its will on others, even if it believes it's acting in the best interests of the universe? Where do you draw the line between benevolent guidance and totalitarian control? These are not easy questions, and there are no easy answers, but they are questions that we need to grapple with if we're going to understand the Fermi paradox and our place in the cosmos. One might argue that such a strategy is inherently unstable. Surely some civilizations would resist, leading to endless conflict and ultimately defeating the purpose of preserving life. But perhaps the gardeners are so advanced, so powerful, that resistance is futile. Or maybe they've developed subtle methods of control, techniques that are so effective that their targets never even realize they're being manipulated. Think of it like a cosmic immune system, constantly scanning for threats and neutralizing them before they can spread. A silent, invisible force that shapes the destiny of the universe. The scariest part of this solution is that it's virtually undetectable. How do you prove that you're being suppressed? How do you distinguish between genuine cosmic silence and deliberate obfuscation? It's like trying to prove a negative. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, as they say. And in this case, the absence of evidence could be the most damning evidence of all. This also forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves. If we were to discover a less advanced civilization, how would we react? Would we offer assistance and guidance, or would we exploit their resources and impose our own values upon them? The answer to that question may hold the key to understanding whether we are destined to become gardeners ourselves or simply another crop to be harvested. Further examination reveals that this gardener scenario aligns with some of the more unsettling aspects of human nature. Our history is filled with examples of powerful empires suppressing weaker cultures, often in the name of progress or security. Is it so far-fetched to imagine that an advanced extraterrestrial civilization would behave in a similar way, but on a much grander scale? It's a dark and disturbing thought, but one that we cannot afford to ignore. The Fermi paradox is not just a scientific puzzle, it's a mirror reflecting our own potential for both greatness and destruction. The analysis continued. What if the very act of searching for extraterrestrial life is what triggers the gardeners to take action? The moment we broadcast our presence to the universe, we may be inviting unwanted attention. It's like shining a flashlight in a dark forest, alerting predators to our location. Or, in this case, alerting the gardeners to a new weed that needs to be pulled. This means that the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, could be a dangerous endeavor. By actively seeking out other civilizations, we may be inadvertently putting ourselves in harm's way. Perhaps the wisest course of action is to remain silent, to observe and listen without revealing our own presence, to cultivate our own garden without drawing the attention of the cosmic gardeners. But is that a sustainable strategy? Can we truly remain hidden forever? And even if we could, would it be worth it? Is it better to live in ignorance and safety, or to risk everything in the pursuit of knowledge and connection? You've been told the universe is a vast, empty place, waiting for us to fill it, but what if it's already full? Not with civilizations bustling like ours, but with something far more subtle and far more unsettling, a galactic experiment. Consider the possibility that we are not alone, but we are part of something larger. A carefully orchestrated plan playing out on a cosmic scale. What if the reason we haven't found other civilizations isn't because they don't exist, but because their development is being carefully managed? Their growth stunted, their explorations curtailed, all in the name of some higher purpose that we can't even begin to comprehend. The idea isn't new. Science fiction has explored this theme for decades, but the Fermi paradox forces us to consider it not as a fantasy, but as a potential reality. A reality where our universe is not a free-for-all, but a carefully curated garden. This galactic experiment could take many forms. Perhaps civilizations are allowed to develop to a certain point, then face a carefully designed crisis, a test of their ingenuity, their resilience, and their capacity for cooperation. Those that pass are allowed to continue, while those that fail are quietly pruned away. Or maybe it's more subtle. Perhaps civilizations are guided, nudged in certain directions, subtly influenced by technologies or ideas planted by the experimenters. Like a gardener carefully shaping a bonsai tree. The implications are staggering. If we are part of a galactic experiment, then everything we think we know about our place in the universe is wrong. Our history, our science, our very existence would be defined by the parameters of the experiment. Even our search for extraterrestrial life could be part of the experiment. Perhaps the experimenters are watching us, waiting to see how we react to the possibility of other civilizations. Are we driven by curiosity and a desire for connection, or by fear and a desire for domination? Our response could determine our fate. Will we be allowed to graduate to the next level of the experiment, or will we be deemed a failure and quietly removed from the cosmic stage? The experiment could be benevolent. Perhaps the experimenters are trying to guide us towards a higher state of consciousness to help us overcome our destructive tendencies and become a truly enlightened civilization. Or it could be malevolent. Perhaps we are simply lab rats being studied for some unknown purpose. Our suffering, our triumphs, our very existence could be meaningless to the experimenters. Either way, the idea of a galactic experiment raises profound ethical questions. Do the experimenters have the right to interfere with the natural development of civilizations? Is it justifiable to sacrifice the freedom and autonomy of entire species in the name of some higher purpose? These are not easy questions to answer, but they are questions we must confront if we are to truly understand our place in the universe. One of the most disturbing aspects of this scenario is the potential for deception. If we are part of an experiment, the experimenters would likely want to keep their involvement hidden. They wouldn't want us to know that we are being manipulated. This means that everything we see and experience could be a carefully constructed illusion. The laws of physics, the history of the universe, even our own thoughts and feelings could be influenced by the experimenters. It's a terrifying thought, but one that we cannot dismiss. The Fermi paradox forces us to consider the possibility that our reality is not what it seems. Consider the simulation hypothesis, the idea that our entire universe is a computer simulation created by an advanced civilization. This hypothesis is often dismissed as science fiction, but it is actually a logical extension of our own technological progress. We are already creating increasingly sophisticated simulations. Virtual reality is becoming more and more realistic. Artificial intelligence is rapidly advancing. It is not hard to imagine a future where we are able to create simulations that are indistinguishable from reality. Simulations that contain entire universes, populated by conscious beings. If we can do it, why couldn't an advanced extraterrestrial civilization do it as well? Perhaps our own universe is just one of countless simulations, running on a supercomputer somewhere in another reality. If that's the case, the Fermi paradox is easily explained. We haven't found other civilizations because they are all part of the same simulation. We are all characters in a cosmic game, unaware of the players behind the screen. The simulation hypothesis is a radical idea, but it is one that is gaining increasing attention from scientists and philosophers. It challenges our fundamental assumptions about reality and our place in the universe. It also raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness. If our universe is a simulation, are we truly conscious, or are we just sophisticated programs running on a computer? These are questions that we may never be able to answer, but the very act of asking them can help us to better understand ourselves and our relationship to the universe. The key element of any experiment is observation. The experimenters would need to constantly monitor our progress, to collect data and analyze our behavior. How would they do this without revealing their presence? Perhaps they are using advanced technologies that we cannot even detect. Dark matter, dark energy, quantum entanglement, these are all phenomena that we don't fully understand. Could they be used as tools for observation and manipulation? Or perhaps they are simply relying on the laws of physics. Perhaps the universe itself is designed in such a way that it provides a constant stream of information about our civilization, like a giant cosmic sensor. The possibilities are endless, and the truth may be far stranger than we can imagine. But one thing is clear. If we are part of a galactic experiment, we are being watched. What's wild is that even the act of trying to understand the experiment could be part of the experiment itself. Maybe the most terrifying Fermi paradox solution isn't about physical barriers, but about moral ones. Consider this. Observation isn't a passive act. It changes things. In quantum physics, this is a fundamental principle. The act of observing a quantum system forces it to choose a state, collapsing the wave function. What if that same principle, on a vastly larger scale, applies to civilizations? Let's examine the possibility that advanced civilizations are aware of this observer effect and actively avoid observing developing worlds for fear of influencing their natural trajectory. It's like the prime directive from Star Trek, but with teeth. It's not just a suggestion, it's a cosmic imperative. Think about it. Imagine you're an incredibly advanced being, capable of traversing interstellar distances and manipulating energy on a scale we can barely comprehend. You stumble upon a young, promising civilization. Us. We're just starting to figure things out, bumbling along, making mistakes, but also showing flashes of brilliance. Now, you have a choice. Do you make contact? Do you offer guidance? Do you simply observe from a distance? The problem is, any of those actions, no matter how well-intentioned, could irrevocably alter our development. Contact could lead to cultural contamination, technological dependence, or even outright destruction. Guidance could stifle our creativity and independent problem-solving. Even passive observation might subtly influence our choices in ways we can't even imagine. It's the butterfly effect on a galactic scale. A single observation, a single data point collected could ripple through our society and push us down a path we wouldn't have otherwise taken. A path that might lead to stagnation, self-destruction, or something even worse. So, what's the responsible thing to do? If you truly care about the long-term flourishing of life in the universe, the answer might be to simply stay away. To allow civilizations to develop at their own pace, free from external interference. To let them make their own mistakes, learn their own lessons, and ultimately find their own way. This solution to the Fermi paradox is unsettling because it implies a level of cosmic responsibility that we may not be ready for. It suggests that the universe is not just a playground for advanced civilizations, but a delicate ecosystem that must be carefully protected. It also raises some uncomfortable questions about our own behavior. Are we, in our relentless pursuit of knowledge and exploration, potentially interfering with other developing worlds? Are we being responsible stewards of the galaxy, or are we blundering around like a bull in a china shop? Further examination revealed a potential dark side to this moral observer theory. What if the observation itself isn't the problem, but rather the knowledge gained from it? Consider this scenario. An advanced civilization observes us, not to interfere, but to assess, to determine whether we pose a threat, to evaluate our potential for expansion, our capacity for violence, our overall stability. If they deem us to be a risk, a civilization on a trajectory towards galactic domination, for example, they might take steps to neutralize that threat before it becomes a problem. Not out of malice, but out of self-preservation, like a cosmic immune system, eliminating potential infections before they can spread. This is where the terrifying part really kicks in. We might not be alone in the universe, but we might be being constantly evaluated, judged, and potentially pruned from the cosmic tree. The implications extend even further. What if the very act of searching for extraterrestrial intelligence is itself a trigger for this kind of evaluation? By broadcasting our presence into the cosmos, are we essentially painting a target on our backs? Are we inviting unwanted scrutiny from civilizations that might not have our best interests at heart? It's a chilling thought. The search for alien life, one of humanity's most ambitious and hopeful endeavors, could inadvertently lead to our own demise. And then there's the final, most unsettling possibility. What if the moral cost isn't about avoiding observation, but about providing it? Imagine a scenario where advanced civilizations actively encourage the development of less advanced worlds, not through direct contact, but through carefully controlled stimuli. They might subtly manipulate environmental conditions, introduce specific genetic mutations, or even engineer entire ecosystems, all with the goal of guiding a civilization down a particular path. It's like a cosmic gardener, pruning and shaping the tree of life to produce the most desirable fruit. But who gets to decide what's desirable? What criteria are they using to judge us? And what happens if we don't meet their expectations? This solution suggests that we are not just being observed, but actively managed. That our entire history, our triumphs and tragedies, our wars and peace treaties, might all be part of some grand cosmic experiment designed by beings beyond our comprehension. This is perhaps the most unsettling solution of all, because it strips us of our agency. It suggests that we are not the masters of our own destiny, but mere puppets on a string, dancing to a tune we cannot hear. Here's what's wild. Maybe the silence we hear isn't the absence of life, but the quiet hum of countless experiments, each unfolding under the watchful eyes of beings whose motives we can only guess at. 99.9999% of the universe remains completely dark to us. Think about that. Almost everything out there is beyond our current ability to observe, to measure, to even detect. And that sliver we can see, it's getting smaller every day as the universe expands. Could this cosmic expansion itself be a kind of quarantine? It sounds outlandish, I know, but consider the implications. If there is a galactic dark forest or some other kind of actively enforced silence, then making ourselves visible becomes exponentially more dangerous over time. As our signals reach further and further into the cosmos, the volume of space we expose ourselves to increases dramatically. We might imagine that advanced civilizations are bound by some kind of ethical code that prevents them from interfering with less advanced worlds. But what if that code only applies within a certain radius? What if the further away we are, the less they care about our fate? This leads to what I'm calling the escaping the cosmic panopticon scenario. The idea is this. The Fermi paradox isn't about why we haven't heard from anyone, but about why we haven't been allowed to hear from anyone. Some unknown force or collection of forces actively suppresses contact between civilizations, creating a kind of cosmic prison. The walls of this prison aren't physical barriers, but rather the limitations imposed by physics itself. The speed of light, the vast distances between stars, the inherent difficulties of interstellar communication. These limitations, combined with a policy of enforced silence, effectively isolate civilizations from one another. But, like any prison, there might be ways to escape. One possibility is technological advancement. As we develop new technologies, we might be able to circumvent the limitations imposed by physics. Perhaps we'll discover faster-than-light travel, or develop communication methods that are undetectable by conventional means. Or maybe we learn to cloak our transmissions so well that no one can monitor our signals. If we could achieve any of these things, we might be able to break free from the cosmic panopticon and establish contact with other civilizations without alerting the wardens. However, there's a significant risk involved. Escaping the panopticon might also mean attracting the attention of those who are enforcing the silence. It's a gamble, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Another possibility lies in changing our behavior. Perhaps the reason we haven't heard from anyone is that we're sending the wrong signals. Maybe our radio broadcasts, our television transmissions, and our internet traffic are all broadcasting our immaturity, our aggression, and our lack of understanding of the cosmic rules. Imagine a parent trying to protect their child from the dangers of the world. They might shield them from certain information, limit their interactions with potentially harmful individuals, and guide them towards a safer path. In a similar way, advanced civilizations might be actively discouraging contact with us until we demonstrate that we're ready for it. This suggests that the key to escaping the cosmic panopticon isn't to break free through technological means, but to evolve into a civilization that is worthy of contact, to become more peaceful, more sustainable, and more responsible stewards of our planet. This would require a fundamental shift in our values, our priorities, and our behavior. It would mean overcoming our tribalism, our greed, and our destructive tendencies. It would mean embracing cooperation, compassion, and a long-term vision for the future. It's a tall order, no question, but it might be our only hope. The final and perhaps most unsettling possibility is that there is no escape. That the cosmic panopticon is not a prison, but a carefully designed ecosystem. That we are not inmates but specimens. That our entire existence is being monitored and manipulated for purposes beyond our comprehension. In this scenario, any attempt to escape would be futile. The wardens would simply adjust their strategies, tighten their grip, and continue their experiment. The implications of this are profound. It would mean that we are not the authors of our own destiny, but rather characters in a cosmic play, written and directed by beings beyond our understanding. It would mean that our search for meaning, Our quest for knowledge and our pursuit of happiness are all being guided, subtly or not, by forces we cannot control. It's a deeply unsettling idea because it challenges our fundamental assumptions about free will, agency, and the nature of reality itself. Are we truly in control, or are we just acting out a script that was written long ago? The Fermi paradox, viewed through this lens, becomes not just a question of why we haven't found anyone else, but a profound meditation on our place in the universe. Are we alone, or are we simply unaware of the vast network of observers and manipulators that surround us? And what happens if we finally do figure it out? What if the silence isn't imposed but chosen? What if it's a reflection of a future that awaits us, a future where the cacophony of ambition and expansion fades into a quiet contemplation of existence? Consider the possibility that civilizations, as they mature, inevitably reach a point where outward expansion becomes less appealing than inward exploration. Perhaps the allure of colonizing distant worlds pales in comparison to the richness and complexity of understanding their own. Think about it on a personal level. As we age, many of us shift our focus from accumulating possessions and chasing external validation to cultivating inner peace and deepening our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Could civilizations undergo a similar transformation on a cosmic scale? The Fermi paradox often assumes that advanced civilizations would be driven by the same impulses that drive us: a relentless desire for growth, expansion, and domination. But what if these impulses are merely a phase, a stage of adolescence that civilizations eventually outgrow? Perhaps the universe is teeming with life, but most of it has chosen a path of quiet introspection. Civilizations might exist in a state of near-perfect harmony with their environments, having mastered the art of sustainable living and transcended the need for endless consumption. They might be dedicating their resources to exploring the depths of consciousness, unraveling the mysteries of the universe, or creating art and beauty beyond our wildest imaginations. This doesn't necessarily mean they're hiding from us, it simply means that their priorities have shifted. They may have concluded that direct contact with less mature civilizations is more disruptive than beneficial, opting instead to observe from a distance, allowing each species to evolve at its own pace. It's a humbling thought, isn't it, that the reason we haven't found anyone else might not be because they don't exist, but because we're not yet ready for them. That the silence of the cosmos is not an empty void, but a symphony of quiet contemplation, waiting for us to learn to listen. The analysis continued. Scientists began to explore alternative models of galactic evolution, ones that accounted for the possibility of civilizations choosing a path of non-interference. They started looking for subtle signs of advanced technology that wouldn't necessarily involve massive construction projects or interstellar travel. Consider, for instance, the possibility of civilizations manipulating the fabric of space-time itself. Instead of building massive Dyson spheres to harness the energy of their stars, they might be creating localized wormholes or manipulating gravitational fields for their own purposes. These technologies would be virtually undetectable to us, requiring a level of sophistication that we can barely imagine. Or perhaps they have mastered the art of camouflage, blending seamlessly into the cosmic background. Imagine a civilization that has learned to manipulate electromagnetic radiation, creating a kind of cloaking device that renders them invisible to our telescopes. They could be right next door and we wouldn't even know it. This perspective shifts the focus of the Fermi paradox from a question of technological capability to a question of values and priorities. It suggests that the reason we haven't found anyone else might not be because they can't reach us, but because they don't want to. It also raises profound questions about our own future. What kind of civilization do we want to become? Do we want to continue down the path of endless expansion and consumption? Or do we want to strive for a more sustainable and harmonious way of life? The answer to these questions may ultimately determine whether we ever break the silence of the cosmos. If we continue to prioritize short-term gains over long-term sustainability, if we continue to be driven by greed and aggression, we may remain forever alone, trapped in our own self-imposed isolation. But if we can learn to cultivate wisdom, compassion, and a sense of responsibility for the future of our planet, we may one day find ourselves welcomed into the larger community of intelligent life in the universe. The implications extend beyond our immediate search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They challenge us to reevaluate our place in the cosmos, to reconsider our values and priorities, and to strive for a future where we can live in harmony with ourselves, with each other, and with the universe around us. Perhaps the greatest lesson of the Fermi paradox is not that we are alone, but that we have the potential to become something greater. That the silence of the sky is not a sign of our insignificance, but an invitation to awaken to our true potential. The silent sky. Is it a warning or an opportunity? Only time will tell. If you found this exploration of the Fermi paradox thought-provoking, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of the universe.